Welcome back to Marketing Smarts, a podcast brought to you by MarketingProfs. I'm your host, Kerry Gorgone. Thanks for joining me for this special video edition of Marketing Smarts, featuring celebrity and philanthropist Jane Seymour. I invited Jane to Marketing Smarts to talk about her charity, the Open Hearts Foundation, an organization inspired by her mother's advice: if you keep your heart open, love will always find a way in. We'll talk about her work supporting local charities, the difficulty of protecting your personal brand in the era of social media, the art of storytelling, and how brands can give back to their communities. I'm very excited to talk with Jane, and I hope you enjoy our conversation as much as I did. This episode of Marketing Smarts is brought to you by GoToWebinar.
Good morning. This is me. I'm handheld
Oh, wonderful.
with the Lumi. Is the background okay here? I'll scoot away so that's not
That's so
okay.
funny. Everything sounds better when you say it. You must hear that all the time.
Well, I usually have to play Americans.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that must be tough. Do you ever play somebody from Boston?
I did actually. Probably the first thing I ever did, Captains and the Kings. I got nominated for an Emmy for that one. So
Really? So you must have got the
yes,
accent right.
Boston.
That's
Yeah.
very hard to do. I'm from Cape Cod and I still don't. I mean, I've lost the Boston accent, and if I try to put it on, it doesn't work. So
Uh,
I think it's a
well,
challenge.
I personally, I have one of my favorites is Alabama. I
Oh.
like to talk like that. It's nice and slow.
I love it.
I
Yes,
love the South.
it's a good drawl. Well, you're about
Oh,
to make your stage debut in Singapore, right?
oh my God. Thank you for reminding me.
Will you be breaking out the Alabama for that, or?
No, I will be frightfully British.
Oh,
Frightfully British.
frightfully.
My children always laugh at me if I'm around anyone British because suddenly I get more British. But yes, I'm rehearsing it in London. It's Noel Coward, so it's not only British, it's 1924's British. So
Oh, so that's a different British than today's British.
well, yes, it's much more mannered.
Oh, well, that's good to know. I'll keep that in
Yes.
mind as I watch it. You mentioned your kids. You have two, right?
Oh, way more.
You will
No,
way
I'm
more. I,
6 children.
oh my gosh. I remember from the Gerber commercials.
Right. That was the last batch.
Oh, the last batch.
The last batch. Those are the twins. Twins. Johnny and Chris. Johnny is Johnny Cash's godson, and Chris was Chris Reeves' godson. They were named after our two very close friends who sadly passed away. But and randomly, Johnny's now become a recording artist, lives in Nashville, and Chris is playing baseball for a college in California.
Oh, that's so funny how that
Yeah,
turned out. Well, that's great. I remember them from the Gerber commercials because they made like the perfect face for the label for the Gerber.
yeah.
Like I can't do it. I'm not
Well,
there.
no, that face actually, that was the original lady who was the original Gerber baby. My babies were just, one of many,
Oh, sure. No, I
or
remember
two of
though
many.
in the commercial
Yeah.
he made just the right face to cut, like they faded to the label, and so
Oh, yes.
it was a
Yeah,
really good fit. Did you
I know
coach him for that? I mean, working with kids has got to be some kind of specialty.
no, it actually, the funny part was that when I gave birth to those two babies, I turned to my husband and I said, "Oh my God, look, they look just like the Gerber baby." And he said, "Yeah, like that's the whole point. Everybody's baby is the Gerber baby, duh." And then you couldn't believe it, but like a couple of weeks later, we get this call from Gerber. Would your babies, would you consider letting them be the Gerber babies? I thought it was a joke. But anyway, it was a joke that lasted for at least 2.5 years. I mean, they were eating sushi and they were still Gerber babies,
How do you
reminiscing.
how do you choose as a celebrity? How do you choose a brand or an organization that aligns with your personal brand or your personal objectives?
Well, I have the Open Hearts Foundation. So it's my own foundation. But what we do is we support and we identify organizations that are doing what the Open Hearts Foundation talks about, which is taking a personal challenge and using that as an opportunity to help others. And this was all actually inspired by my mother, who went through World War II in a Japanese internment camp for 3.5 years. And by the time I was born and my sisters, my mother always used to say to me, "Darling, when things are tough and when there are challenges in life, the natural instinct is to close off. But if you can open your heart, accept what's happened, and in some way reach out to help someone else, especially from having been through something similar to what they're going through, said purpose, and that leads to happiness, which leads to bringing love into your life. And so I interpreted that as the two hearts that were open, that connected, and that's the open heart. So it was originally, there were paintings, and I've written books about it, but the real inspiration was my mother. It was the way she lived her life.
It's really incredible to think about getting through an experience like that by serving others, and that you don't come out of that experience jaded and closed off. If anything, it seems to have enhanced and created this legacy of love and giving.
Well, when I first started doing it, Christopher Reeve would have been my very first honoree, because if you think about what happened to him, he could very easily have just said, I've got enough going on. The last thing in the world I need to do is to go out there and try and raise money and awareness and fight for the rights of people who've had spinal injuries. And at that time, as we all know, the medical profession said, there's nothing we can do. But he would be the perfect example of someone with an open heart, because, he spent every waking minute for his entire life after that injury, doing what he could to help other people in his predicament. But what's wonderful with what we're doing right now, which is why I get the privilege of talking to you, is that we decided to ask the public who they thought should be nominated for the Open Hearts Award. And so we had 1,300 organizations submitted, and it was very hard to choose. And we had to pick 4. And so I've been going around the country and giving checks to all 4 of them, and then interviewing them and doing a lot of media locally. And we're making a little promo video so that the public can see who they are and what they do and why we picked them. And then April 7th, everyone will be allowed to vote for their favorite, and April 23rd we'll announce the winner, and the winner will get a $10,000 check, but also I'm sure a national notoriety.
Well, naturally, I'm pulling for Hugs from Bugs because that's the Orlando finalist.
Yes, absolutely. And Hugs from Bugs, it's such a wonderful organization. Haley Bugs, as she was referred to, Everett, was diagnosed when she was very young with leukemia. And while she was going through chemo and all the rest of it, she and her parents decided that kids who were going through chemo really needed hope and fun and games and maybe the odd visit from a princess. And some of the families needed financial help, and so they wanted to bring hope and gifts and something special to that community, and that's what she started. And they even have a bell at Nemours, is that what it's called, hospital, where the kids, when they finish their chemo, get to ring the bell. So what, there are wonderful things that people do that make a huge difference to people. And I think that's what's so much fun with the Open Hearts Foundation, is you manage to find people that are really impacting lives. And by shining a light on them, hopefully more and more people will support them, and then more and more kids will be able to receive their hugs from bugs.
Well, you've had such an evolution. You're an actress, you're an artist, and now you're a philanthropist, of course, with great success. How do you reinvent yourself? How do you find or discover these aspects of your personality that, most people think of you as a Bond girl, right?
Well, I don't know about that, but I started
My mom
out,
did.
actually. You did? Okay. Well, I started out, we didn't have any money, really, and I was living in England. I had flat feet and a speech impediment, so my parents saved up some money and got me into a ballet class. I wanted to become a ballerina. I eventually managed to get a scholarship to a school, but not a full scholarship. Couldn't afford the ballet shoes, knew how to knit, crochet, and embroider, started my own company at 15. So I've been creating clothing and all kinds of things like that, and designing and doing houses ever since I can remember. So I actually haven't directed any movies, but I do have 10 different design businesses that I work with, everything from furniture to bed linens that's coming out in June, obviously the jewelry that everyone's seen, and a number of other things. So I do that. I paint a great deal. I write books, as you said. I'm going to actually next year be doing a Jane Seymour Open Hearts, Open Minds cruise, leaving from Fort Lauderdale, going around the Caribbean for a week.
So back in Florida.
Yeah, back in Florida. So that's going to be a lot of fun, because then I really can talk to people very directly and kind of immerse them in everything else that I'm doing. But I produce movies. I produced a movie that was on CNN called I'll Be Me, about Glenn Campbell and Alzheimer's. But as you said, I do a lot of nonprofit. I'm about to do The Vortex in Singapore, mounting it in England. I'm doing a television show in England called Hooten and the Lady. I just finished a movie that I starred in called Mistrust. I had a movie come out this week that's now on iTunes already called About Scout, wonderful movie. I have another movie opening a week after next called High Strung, a great dance movie. I have another movie that I star in that's I also produce called Bereave Me Not with Malcolm McDowell and Keith Carradine. That's coming out in the fall. And on
You
and on
keep
and on.
busy. And you have 6 kids.
6 kids and 5 grandchildren.
That's amazing. I mean, how do you balance all of that? And how do you find room in your life for charity, for giving back with such a busy career and a family?
Well, the foundation is fantastic, and of course, working with K Jewelers really helps too, because they really help me be able to, speak to people like you and get out there in the public. But I never stopped designing or thinking of ideas or really kind of meeting people in my travels. I mean, I meet people every day at the oddest times, and I tell them about what I'm doing, and they go, "Oh, we're doing something like this, or we'd love you to come and do that with us, or we want to support that." So I have a great belief that sometimes when you least expect it, magical things happen because you meet someone, you talk about something. And I think, talking about having an open heart and having an open mind is very much a universal message. And, I see open hearts as a universal symbol, really, of giving and receiving love. And I know that my mother would have been so proud of the difference that's being made in the world. And I was talking to a media person yesterday, and I said, bad news seems to be the only thing that sells. I said, well, this is a perfect example here. There was bad news, but now they've turned it around to be great news, not just for themselves, but for many others. So I think it ticks all the boxes. We want good news. We want to inspire people to be able to accept whatever's happening and then see what they can do to help other people. And I think a lot of people really want to help smaller organizations too. They want to really see the difference that their few dollars make. And that's why I'm very excited to be working with Hugs from Bugs.
Jane, talk more about that. What was it about Hugs from Bugs that made them such a perfect fit for the Open Hearts Foundation?
Well, I think, Haley went through it. Her parents went through it. And they realized what her needs were and what would make a difference for her in being able to go through the horrendous treatments that you have to go through. And I think they kind of looked around and said, wait a minute, we can do this for the next group that are coming in, because sadly there are kids with these leukemias and these cancers filling the hospitals all the time. And so they felt that they had a unique perspective on what would make a difference to that community.
Do you think that going forward, when you're looking to recruit other charities that maybe haven't heard about the Open Hearts Foundation yet, what would be the one defining characteristic of everyone that Open Hearts is like, every organization that Open Hearts is designed to help?
I think the one thing that really carries through is the fact that it was started and launched because of a personal challenge, either to the person involved or to someone in their family or someone very close to them. So I think the story is very important. And I think what Open Hearts does is it inspires us just every day to kind of make an effort to help other people too. Like my mother always said to me, said, darling, in life, however hard you think it is, there's always someone worse off than you. So even if you just pick up the phone and say, hey, how are you doing today? Or you bring a cup of tea, go and share a cup of tea with someone, or a cup of coffee, or you just give someone a hug and you just say, hey, I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry. Or is there anything I can do? A lot of times just listening is huge. So opening your heart and opening your mind. It's wonderful if you can raise money for charity. It's great if you can start an organization. But it's great if you can find one, like, for example, Hugs from Bugs, and just say, hey, I want to help these guys. I'm going to find things for them to give to these kids for those gift baskets. I want to be one of the people that gets to bring them to the hospital. I want to support this little girl and what she's doing. Or, I want to do something like this in my area. So we're hoping that this inspires people to want to do it themselves.
You mentioned story a little bit, the story of the charity and how that draws your attention. You've acted in, hundreds of productions. What makes for a compelling story?
I'm all about authentic. When something's real, I personally love biographies because I don't think a story is ever as profound or as moving as the real story. And I think when you hear these real stories and you hear what people have actually had to go through, it's always so much more powerful.
Have you written one yet? An autobiography?
You know what? I've already written, I think, 10 or 12 books. And some of them have got sort of autobiographical elements in them. I haven't written one yet. Um, I keep being asked to, but at some point I will get around to it. But I do a lot of public speaking, and I have written books talking about how I feel about opening your heart. And there are 4 books, open heart books. There's Open Hearts, Angels, Family, and The Wave. And The Wave actually be interesting to you because I've always felt that in life, whatever your circumstances, it's as if you're on a body of water going in a general direction. And then at some point, there's that woohoo moment, like a wave that crests when you get picked to make the team, to win the prize, to, you fall in love, your first kiss, whatever it is. It's that, whoa. And then, of course, it never stays there. You go, no, why not me? Why did this stop? And we all realize that life is cyclical. So if you think of the wave, it lets go of what it no longer needs. Important as an element to remember. And as it comes down, it doesn't stay down. It maybe skims the bottom and comes straight back up. And if your heart and your mind are open, like the water, you will connect with something new and you create a new wave.
That's incredibly deep. That's very deep for 10 a.m.
Well, I've been through a lot of ups and downs and waves. I mean, certainly nothing like a lot of other people, but a number of years ago, I had a near-death experience and they resuscitated me. I would say that was pretty deep.
It is.
And I learned an enormous amount from it. But the biggest single thing I learned from that is the only thing you take with you is the love you've shared and the difference you've made. And I think a combination of that experience and the way my mother brought me up made me really feel that supporting the concept of living life with an open heart and an open mind is something very important to me.
Do you think that celebrities in general have an obligation to support charities or find a way to help others, or is that just something that personally drives you?
You know what? I can't speak for other celebrities, but I've been involved with charities since long before I was an actress. You do get asked to this charity, that, a million different charities. And I think that was one of the reasons why I wanted my own foundation, so I could be really selective and really put my voice behind something that I had firsthand knowledge of and that I could, almost kind of guarantee it was worth doing.
One of the things I noticed in looking through all the materials about your foundation is that your voice comes through really clearly. And how long did it take you to kind of find your voice, tell your story in a way that was unique to you? Because I imagine, and I'm not a celebrity, so I don't know, but I imagine you have a lot of people kind of whispering in your ear about, well, don't say this, say that, or how important is authenticity to you?
100% important. No ad agency, no organization, nobody created Open Hearts. That came from my experience, and you could talk to my sisters, you talk to everyone who ever knew my mother. I mean, that's just who we are and what we are. So no, no sound bites from anybody, I'm afraid. I literally came up with this crazy idea myself, and only to realize that the whole world has been talking about opening their hearts. Literally every faith, every spiritual leader, everybody, every philosopher. I mean, it doesn't matter where you look, you suddenly go, wow, oh yes, open your heart. And I mean, and even physically, if you think about yoga or any kind of meditation, it's all about opening your heart and opening your mind. And I think that I got even more excited about this when I look at the news and I see what's going on in the world and how many how many terrible things are going on where people's minds are closed and the hearts are closed and people become very sectarian. So my hope is really that this can become like a universal symbol of giving and receiving love, and that people will realize that they can be whatever specific culture that they are and they follow, and is their culture, um, but this is a unifying, universal way of connecting with different people in different circumstances.
Your foundation partners with local organizations and helps grassroots efforts become really national or even international causes. Do you think that businesses have a role to play or corporations have a role to play in helping charities like this one, Hugs from Bugs, to take hold?
I think so. I found that businesses are actually very generous if they know how they specifically can really make a difference. And I think it's like the individual. If you know that you have $100 for your whole year to give to charity, you want to give it somewhere where you know that $100 is actually going to make a difference. Um, and you don't want it all going to admin and stuff like that. And you really want it to go somewhere where you could take a look, and maybe um, you can help out. I mean, I would imagine with Hugs from Bugs that they probably use volunteers as well. I'm sure that they would love it if people out here in Florida would go to different companies and say, this would be really cool for Hugs from Bugs. They could use this for their gift basket, or they could, use a visiting princess from one of the theme parks, or, whatever it is, or, donate money, because a lot of times these families can barely afford to deal with the treatments and the cost to the whole family for having a sick child.
The charities that you support, I think, probably because of your eye for a good story, have really compelling, moving stories. There might be other causes where people say, oh boy, some animal in the rainforest that I'm never going to see. That's different than sick children in your own community. I think it would be difficult for anyone to turn a blind eye to that kind of
You will be
story.
surprised. There are more people, if you polled it, more people are inclined to give money to endangered species in countries they've never even heard of than they are to children in their own community.
Well, that is a research report I look forward to reading. Uh,
Or animals in general. I think, animals I actually talk about animals in one of my books in terms of family, because the open heart family are people that you connect with in your life that aren't necessarily your genetic family. And actually, animals are a very big part of that. Animals are our family to a huge proportion of people all over the world. So animals are very important to me. But funnily enough, human beings and children appear to be our most endangered species.
See, you're getting deep again. And I'm going to remind you, it's still early here. You might be on England time still. I'm not
I'm
sure.
just being I wish I was being deep. I think I'm actually being accurate, sadly.
Which of the four finalists, I know they all have different qualities, which do you think, or which drew your attention first? Like when you were going through the sifting through all the applicants, did these four immediately rise to the top
Oh,
or?
no, it was so hard. I mean, we got down to 40 that could be any one of that 40. I mean, and there are some great organizations where the story didn't, fit quite as well as these maybe did. Um, but they were all great organizations. It was a phenomenal response. We never expected 1,300, and this is the first time we've ever done this. So I think after we've done this, if it's successful, as it appears to be, I think some amazing things are going to happen from it. Uh, I think that some of these organizations might become national or certainly spread to other states. I think these organizations, I'm sure, are going to get much bigger donations or notoriety within their community as well. Um, and I wouldn't be surprised if we didn't do this again next year.
What are your goals for growing the organization beyond this? Like where do you see the organization going?
I would obviously, have big dreams. I'd love it to be international one day. I love the idea of asking the public what we should do about it, because there are a million organizations out there, and I think the difference we have is that um, I have the ability to go out and be able to communicate with people and tell the story. And there's a lot of great stories out there and great organizations that are never heard of, and that we'd all like to know about.
Jane, where can people learn more about you? Where can they get copies of your books? Where can they learn about Open Hearts Foundation?
Well, if you go to janeseymour.com, you can find everything,
Are
pretty
you on
much
Twitter?
everything. No, I'm not. Everyone keeps asking me. I was told I shouldn't do Twitter because I get into trouble.
What?
So I'm on Instagram and I'm on Facebook.
I
And
seriously doubt among the people that I've seen on Twitter that you could possibly get into more trouble. I don't know for sure.
well, I mean, let's also consider how much time do I have for this? I mean, really?
It's true. That now that I
I
believe.
and since I am authentic, I actually do take the photographs and tell the stories and try and share as much of my life as I can whilst living a life. Got to live a life, remember?
Well, that
Very
I
important. A lot
remember
of
what
people
that was
are too
like.
busy sharing to actually live it. I try to live it too.
That's a really excellent point, actually. So, do you think we were better off when we had these I mean, the thing is, we had these well crafted personal brands. So, anybody that was a public personality could carefully craft their persona. You really can't do that now because even if you're not on Twitter or Instagram, someone next to you is. Do you view that as better or worse?
You know what? Somebody told me that yesterday there was a drone flying right over my lawn. Okay, so we've lost all privacy. It's all gone. Can you
That's,
imagine that? I
no,
mean,
that's horrible.
it's truly horrible. And there are no laws saying they can't do it. So I kind of like the olden days, you know.
Really?
I like the days when people actually met one another and pressed the flesh and talked to one another and had conversations. I hate, all this email and fast, soundbite thing, because you don't know the tone with which it's spoken, and I think that's sad. So yeah, I think tone is everything.
Well, Jane, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with me today. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you, and congratulations on what you're doing.
Thanks so much. I really enjoyed talking with Jane, although I did learn a valuable lesson about doing video podcasts next to gorgeous celebrities, which is to have a hairbrush handy next time. But thanks for joining me for today's special video edition of Marketing Smarts. If you'd like to know more about Jane, visit her website, janeseymour.com. You can also check out her foundation's website at openheartsfoundation.org. Thanks for watching here to the very end. This has been the Marketing Smarts Podcast, brought to you by MarketingProfs. I'm your host, Kerry Gorgone. Talk with you next week.